the man who is joining us now. ESPN College Football Insider. He's an expert, analyst, national champion, Trevor Matich. Trevor, great to have you back on the show after a full weekend of college football. How was it for you?
It was astonishing. I mean, to have fans back in the stadium, all the pageantry, all the pregame celebrations, all the things that happened, I think reminded us of what we missed last year and reminded us why college football is not just great entertainment. It is important to communities, to cities, to everybody that cares about anything associated with it. This college football opening weekend was, to me, about as perfect as it could possibly have been.
Yeah, it was fun to just be back, and the showing from Cougar Nation in Vegas was incredible, Trevor. We talked about what happened versus what didn't happen and our thoughts on that. How would you assess everything around the Arizona game?
I think it was a good fight. If you look at it from 30,000 feet, I expected it to be more of a fight than a lot of people did, because Arizona is not nearly as unfortunate this season as a lot of people thought they might be. They've got good Pac-12 speed on the perimeters. They've got Pac-12 speed in their defense. They brought in a whole bunch of transfers, especially on defense, to help bulk that up. This was a team that was a lot more dangerous than people thought coming into this. And I thought BYU was in a real fight with them, a legitimate fight. And BYU showed that they have retained their toughness and their ability to win those kinds of games.
What was your number one takeaway from BYU's overall performance?
My number one takeaway is that Jaron Hall is the real deal. Jaron Hall did a wonderful job, I thought, overall. Now, he didn't have three of his potentially top receivers. Gunnar Romney got hurt. The Nakua brothers didn't play for the most part. And so you had a quarterback making his first start as the quarterback, as the guy with short weapons. And so what Arizona State was able to do is focus on the tight ends and keep them from being effective. And in targeting the tight ends, they had 5 targets and 2 catches, both of them by Isaac Rex, I think. And so they took those guys pretty much out of the game. And then Neil Pau had more receiving yards than all the other receivers, running backs, and tight ends combined. That's not going to fly against Utah. But I thought it was a good job by Jaron Hall in going to the guy he needed to go to and to manage this game without making any big mistakes. And I think that was an outstanding start to the Jaron Hall era.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Neil Pau was awesome as well. Like you mentioned, Tyler Algier almost had 100 yards. So the good news is BYU won, and certainly there were some areas where BYU can improve going into week 2. But it felt like, especially against this Arizona team, Trevor, maybe BYU should have won by more. They're up 21-3. Arizona climbs back in it. But that's something Kalani Sitake and you just mentioned the Cougars can improve on as they prepare for a better Utah team.
That's right. And really, it's pass coverage and pass defense that they need to improve on, because they well and truly stuffed the Arizona running game. I've got no problem with that side of it from a standpoint of Arizona, although Utah is a different animal when it comes to rushing the football. But the way they came back was passing the ball. I liked some things that the Cougar defense did, especially when it came to blitzing in certain key situations. They brought linebackers. They got after the quarterback. They ended up with 4 sacks, 2 by linebackers, 2 by defensive line. And that's also good to get the defensive line more involved in sacking the quarterback. But at the same time, especially when Keenan Ellis went out, there was a lot of space in that secondary. And they were able to get fast guys free in space. And that's something that they'll need to tighten up. Now, in fairness, a lot of defenses had trouble with that. Oklahoma, they had a lot of trouble with that. Ohio State, their defense in their opener had a lot of trouble with that. So it's not just BYU. It, in a lot of ways, is an opening week phenomenon for a lot of teams. But they've got to get that part of it tightened up, because you know that Utah right now is looking at that game tape and they're thinking, okay, we see spaces in that secondary that we can try to hit and make them prove that they can stop it.
ESPN's Trevor Matich with us on BYU Sports Nation, part of a Matich Monday following a BYU win over Arizona. Of course, the Cougars now staring down Utah for the first time in 2 years. How do you feel like BYU matches up with the Utes in 2021?
You know, I would have rather they played last year, or I would have hoped they would have played last year in addition to this year. But this year, I think BYU matches up pretty well. The greatest strength of this Utah team is the offensive line. All 5 starters are back from last year, and Utah typically has a massive, powerful offensive line, and they do. And so BYU's front seven, really the defensive line, is going to have to hold up and stop that running game early and not let them string together first downs, or else they could get fatigued as the game goes on, because that offensive line is amazing. Then the other strength of the team is the linebacking core, as it usually is for Utah. But it's also the strength of BYU's team. So in some ways, we have a kind of a dueling linebacker groups that will see which ones can make the fewest mistakes and which ones can make the biggest plays. So I like the fact that Jaron Hall started so well, because Charlie Brewer started pretty well against Weber State last week for Utah. He's the transfer quarterback from Baylor. And he was efficient. He wasn't great. He was efficient. And so Jaron Hall needs to match that efficiency and then add to it some big plays with his arm and his legs in order to be able to make the matchup tilt in favor of BYU.
How many times did you lose to Utah again in your career, Trev?
Well, that's a very good question. I've been asked a lot how it feels to lose to your rival. And I've got to tell you, you've got to ask somebody else, because we were 4-0 against Utah, 4-0 against Utah State. So thanks for asking. But I'll tell you what, though, it still hurts when Utah beats BYU. I have a lot of respect for the way that Kyle Whittingham gets his team ready to play, and a lot of respect for that team. But it still hurts. And Utah, they've had it over BYU for a long time. BYU does have the ability to end that streak this year, but they will have to be flawless, and some of their injuries will have to get better in a hurry, especially the Nakua brothers. And we'll see how Gunnar Romney is, because Jaron Hall will need those weapons against this Utah defense.
Yeah, let's specify where BYU does have an advantage against Utah in your mind.
I think if all the receivers are back, I think that the receivers against the Utah secondary this year is an advantage for BYU. Normally, Utah secondary is lights out. This year, it's going to be good, but I don't think it'll be as good as it has been for recent years. I think from a standpoint of the running game, Tyler Algier has the ability to force those linebackers to stay honest in pass coverage. And so as long as he can get the running game going, and I think he will be able to a degree, that'll open up other things, especially throwing the ball to Algier on play action pass and have him leak out of the backfield. That's an advantage. And then I think that one advantage that would have been the BYU secondary compared to Utah secondary, but with Keenan Ellis out for this week, you've got an injury situation there. Now, the corners were one of the strengths of the team coming into the season, so we'll see how they hold up. But I think you lost a potential advantage by losing that starting caliber corner, and then depth that has to step up into the backup spots as you rotate everybody up. So when it comes down to it, I think BYU is going to have to win this game with Jaron Hall throwing the ball, especially to the running backs, and get the tight ends more involved, and then Jaron Hall improvising on the run. Now, I also expect, I haven't talked to any of the BYU coaching staff, so this is just my opinion, but I do expect them to call a lot of plays that will get Hall outside the pocket, on the move intentionally. Some of those will be called quarterback runs, but many of them will be rollouts, half rolls, bootlegs, waggles, things like that to get him out of the pocket, because Utah will try to attack him and speed up his game. And for young quarterbacks, that's always the biggest danger, that if the defense can speed up their thought process, they can force mistakes. So I think BYU will use that agility that Hall has to move that target around in terms of where that pass rush needs to get in order to affect him. And that'll be a huge part of this game.
Amen. I know that Jaron hadn't started a game and finished it in his first two until Saturday, so that was good. He mentioned as much to me after the game and smiled about it. But yes, the Utah defense is different, right? So that's going to be interesting. Okay, let's talk about the Big 12. It looks like this is a formality from reports. It's just a matter of time. Apparently the Big 12 is going to vote on Friday. Who knows? We could have a press conference next week introducing BYU to the Big 12. Who knows if it's next year or the year after that. What are your thoughts on this landmark move for BYU football and BYU athletics?
Well, yeah, if it happens, it would be monumental. The biggest off-field thing that ever happened to BYU football. If it happens. Now, right now, there's still a lot of things that could happen to derail it. And when it might happen, if it does go through like it's expected to, when BYU might join the Big 12 is up in the air as well, because they've got a pretty full slate of contracted games set up through 2024. So you can always get out of those contracts, but we'll see how things shake out from there. But overall, it is monumental. It's also monumental for the Big 12 should it happen, because the 4 teams that they're talking about bringing in, BYU, Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, are teams that add a lot of cachet to the remaining 8 members of the Big 12. No disrespect to them, but it's good to add teams like those 4 that bring in some clout when you're losing Texas and Oklahoma. And I think BYU, we've talked about this in the past, but it's important that BYU has a truly national and even international fan base. I did a quick count of how many LDS people live in SEC states in the SEC footprint, and that was about 500,000. Now, that doesn't mean that members of the church are always watching BYU, but there's a built-in fan base there. There's a built-in fan base of people that aren't members of the church who love exciting college football, who have learned over the decades that when they see that Y on that helmet, they need to stop scrolling through games because something exciting is going to happen. BYU plays an exciting brand of football, win or lose, and that's good. And that helps the Big 12. I think that financially for the Big 12, we still don't know what will happen to them. And this is an important issue as well, because a lot of people are saying, okay, the Big 12 can't make money now with Texas and Oklahoma gone, no matter who they bring in. And I don't know that that's true. I think that they will still be a viable national brand if they bring in these 4 teams for television partners, but tech partners are what is interesting to me, because Amazon already has the NFL Thursday night package. And if Amazon or Google or Twitter or some of the other tech giants want to get more involved in college football, this will be the biggest league, I guess you could say, that would still be available for grant of rights, because the Big Ten's coming up here and they'll probably get locked up soon. The ACC is locked up in grant of rights through 2036. All of a sudden, you've got the Big 12 sitting there with the addition of some very big market, very popular teams. And if you're a tech company, you might jump in and bid that price way up. So you don't know who will be bidding for these grants of rights in future years. And so I wouldn't automatically say that the Big 12 is barely viable. The Big 12 may be a very solid conference going forward, not just from a football standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. And we just don't know how all that stuff will shake out.
What a week ahead for BYU, Utah on the docket, Big 12 expansion perhaps. But let's finish with this, Trevor. You already talked about how nice it was to see fans and the pageantry of college football back. I think we can all agree on that. What was your biggest takeaway from the results over the entirety of week 1 of college football?
Well, from the results, my biggest takeaway is that we're not sure about some things that we thought we were sure about. For example, Ohio State's defense, I thought would come in a lot better than they performed against Minnesota. Minnesota has a very good offense with a future NFL quarterback. But in terms of too many guys missing too many tackles against too many different Minnesota ball carriers and too many defensive backs misplaying the ball, even though they were close to the receiver when it came down, that's a concern and something that Ohio State will need to prove if they want to get into the top 4. Georgia and Clemson each faced an elite defense, and neither offense could do anything. Both offenses managed to score just 3 points. Georgia's defense outscored both offenses combined with a pick 6 in that game. So there are things that we don't know. But you talk about the pageantry. My favorite thing was when Florida State's Mackenzie Milton came in, the former USC quarterback who had a catastrophic knee injury a couple of years ago, might not have been able to even walk. Came back in when the starting quarterback lost his helmet, had to go out for a play, and immediately started to bring Florida State back to tie the game at the end of regulation and send it to overtime against top 10 Notre Dame. And I'll tell you, that to me was the thing that represented college football more than anything else in this week 1, that the greatness of the game that goes beyond what you see on the field in terms of entertainment, but what it means to people, to see his parents in the stands, his mother crying, the announcers framing that story for what it really was, which was a triumph of overcoming a catastrophic injury. And for him to have success on the field at the same time, to bring him back to tie the game, to send it to overtime, that to me represents college football. And the fact that it happened in week 1 after the pandemic season of 2020, to me was the perfect way to start this season.
I love it. Well said, Trevor. So great to catch up with you and discuss football after a full weekend. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, guys.